So I'm going to welcome back now onto the screen Gurpreet, Farhad, Patrice, and Anna to share their thoughts on how you go about building these processes in a way that you actually create the engaging and rewarding experiences you're trying to with the customer. Because as you could see by that, what was your last experience like? In the real world, it's equally likely that they can go wrong as it is that you actually meet the mark at that magic moment you're trying to create for your customers and the efficiencies you're trying to deliver in your business. So we're going to go through a series of questions, and I'm going to start with, how do you define personalization with AI, Anna?
We tend to have a lot of different conversation actually around how you define personalization, because it all depends on what type of organization you're sitting in, and even what department you are within the organization, as well as what are your digital maturity and where are you within the personalization journey. On one side of this personalization spectrum is what we call mass communication. That's when you're targeting basically everyone you have access to a particular channel. This is what I have mentioned to people previously are trying to move away from. Then we move into a more advanced state of personalization towards segment or tailored audience level. And this is when you got a group of customers who have a set of attributes that are similar or have been pre-selected based on a certain criteria, which is exactly what the acquisition AI machine learning model has been doing. And we have just talked about how do we pre-select people which will get the same treatment. These are the segments of your, or a subset of your product customer base. The more sophisticated organizations that are much further into the analytics and technology infrastructure maturity, as well as much more customer focused, are truly getting to the one-to-one personalization, or something that we are calling hyper-personalization, or a segment of one. In this personalization, you are truly putting together your communication, your messaging to the customer at the one-to-one level. And unless a machine learning model, for example, scores two people with the same score, they are not likely to get the same version of your communication. But personalization is not just about the customers themselves and who you're going after and you want you to speak to, but it has a number of different dimensions. First of all, it's what you're trying to talk to them about. Sometimes that's message, it's an offer, sometimes it's the copy of or a particular call to action that you actually want to have for one or multiple clients. And that all is based on the profile that you use to inform some of those decisions. Creative, as I mentioned previously, is something that can be personalized with appropriate visuals. And we want to do that to make sure that once people open their message, the first time they open it, it actually resonates with the type of experience you want them to associate your brand with. The right channel is also very important. Gurpreet, for example, talked about the challenges of connecting the dots between the digital and non-digital experiencing, and needing to have the correct data capabilities to create omni-channel experience where you actually have a true cross-channel awareness of what each person does on each one of your channels in order to select the appropriate one. And then finally, the right time. And this is something that we internally talk a lot about, which is a key dimension to personalization, because you actually can deliver messages through a channel every single second or minute of the day without a significant incremental cost, of course, depending on the channel. But this has to be very carefully controlled for, because to make sure that it's not overdone and doesn't turn or annoy customers off. And we have just seen in the poll that some of the personalization efforts were actually associated with quite negative words. So the point here, Peter, is to answer your question. There is no right or wrong place to be on the personalization spectrum. it all depends on the maturity of the organization, as well as the type, the context of the outcomes that you want to drive.
Thank you very much for that, Hannah. Patrice, over to you. So given that definition and that sort of spectrum and construct, what does good look like in this space?
That's a very good question. And I think Anna touched upon some of those dimensions that are really important for good personalization to actually makes an impact. I like to see it across two different aspects. So from the customer endpoint who is on the receiving end on the personalization, and from the organization that's more on the supply side of a personalization. On the customer end, we sort of have that intuitive idea of what good looks like when we resonate with a message, with a communication that comes to us personalized. And those different dimensions that Anna talked about, let's say having the right customer, the right message, the right creative as well, having the right channel that comes to us in the right time, to me are really key to making personalization actually look good. So we talked about really understanding who is it that you're actually trying to target. Do you have that right audience, that right target people that would either react positively to a personalized message or react negatively, right? In the word cloud that we had, the word creepy sort of popped out, and creepy can be good, creepy can be not so good, in a sense that for some customer, it looks creepy because, whoa, it's surprising how accurate it is with respect to my preferences and what I was looking for. But at the same time, you do want to make sure that personalization is good, resonates with you in terms of timing, in terms of context to which it happens. And that's when it starts really, really resonating with people. For example, you bought a car a few weeks ago, right before the beginning of, let's say you bought a car right before the beginning of winter, is announcing a snowstorm, and you start saying promotion for shovels. You know, they'll be very welcome because I'm a first-time buyer of a car, let's say right before winter, and I got a promotion for a shovel, but it could be very untimely if it arrives in summer. Now, the other aspect of where I think make personalization or be good to some extent is from an organization perspective. I think goods look like for an organization is having a very, very good understanding of the why, understanding what your business objectives are. And once you get that actually well understood, then you know how it aligns to your business objective. The second aspect of it is, understanding when to use or not to use AI for personalization. And I talked about the spectrum, and in some of that spectrum, sometimes you probably going to be using a cannon to kill a mosquito when what's appropriate for your organization is being on the spectrum of doing a segment-based hyper-personalization, and you already have all the elements to do so. So in a nutshell, that's how I would define what good look like for personalization.
Thank you very much, Patrice. Moving on to question number 2. Gurpreet, what makes this so hard? And why does there seem to be so many misconceptions about what the challenges are as people try and either catch up to competitors or start this for the first time? Like where are the common stumbles and roadblocks on creating AI personalized experiences?
I think the first thing is personalization can mean different things to different people. And I think it's really important for you as an organization to have like a common vision of what personalization is and how you're going to deliver it. So, it could be like, there's challenges in figuring out where to start, right? So is it just you're personalizing offers? Is it that you're personalizing the website, the mobile experience, the service experience? So I think it's having a good, clear vision of what personalization is and how you're going to deliver personalization. And really, if you look at marketing and where marketing initially started, it was really more demographics focused, right? So the personalization is based on you falling into a particular age group or you being in a particular postal code, et cetera. And then, then we kind of evolved into, kind of self-organizing maps and creating different, different segments based on that. But if you look at the leading organizations and how they're personalizing, it's really based on, using these ML models that Anna talked about, right? So are you able to look at those transactions, at scale, be able to go through them and say, hey, based on the data these are the different segments that we're seeing, right? And then really having this test and learn type approach to make that happen. There really isn't one. A lot of people think that personalization is kind of like data science. So we have a data scientist, and then we're gonna get personalization, and it's more than that, right? Like it really takes a data scientist is not gonna get the data for you and cleanse it for you and get it ready. Neither is a data scientist gonna be able to do something with the end result, right? In terms of like activating it. So it really takes the whole team to be able to bring this together.
Great, thanks so much, Gurpreet. And once you've sort of successfully built your POC or built your model or figured out that first mountain you talked about climbing, where are some challenges in doing it at scale?
I think scale, I'll go back to the people side, right? I think people are vitally important in terms of building the right team, having the right leaders that can attract the right people to the organization. And usually it's a different set of skills than what you have today to be able to do this at scale. And then you really got to think about, are you able to actually personalize? Like if you look at Starbucks created and this is public information, 400,000 different messages to send to people, right? And then it determined which one of those 400,000 messages are going to be sent based on, what criteria, right? So part of being able to personalize at scale is making sure you're able to have content at scale. And sometimes your content is what limits you in terms of what scale you can have. You may be able to reach a lot of people, but it's really with the same content, right? So I think that's one aspect of being able to scale. I think the other aspect is just the foundational plumbing, right? So you have to get the plumbing right. You have to get the data quality right. You have to be able to trust your data. We have a lot of clients that where those are some of the foundation elements that they're trying to set up and get right before fully going into the personalization realm, right? So I think it's really important to make sure you have the foundations all set up, and that you trust your data. And overall, like it's not a trivial thing. Like I said, it involves multiple parts of the organization to come together, and those handoffs have to be right. And it requires a lot of data, and you have to be really comfortable with managing a lot of data and a lot of content.
Oh, great point, Gurpreet. And this is only going to get more complicated as you start letting generative AI create those 400 or something messages and turn them into an infinite number of messages. And so handling your processes and having the right people involved is going to be very critical. So moving on to the last set of questions here before we open up to QA the entire session. Farhad, what does an organization need to get right before embarking on a personalization journey? Like how do you start to eat an elephant, or excuse the crude analogy, but how do you start tackling this multidisciplinary problem?
You hit the nail on the head just with that question there, Peter. That's multidisciplinary. There are multiple factors that an organization needs to start getting right before they can start this journey. The first part is where do you start? I mean, there's so many different areas within AI or within personalization that you can leverage AI. So you need to first think about what is the strategy you want to accomplish. What are the channels where you can find that you want AI to play? Whether it's things like reducing acquisition cost of customers, whether it's increasing lifetime value of customers, whether it's things like even like dynamic pricing in order to be able to maximize your revenue there. What's the strategy you want to follow, or what's the sort of strategy you want to use or go towards when you embark on this journey? When you have the strategy in mind, then how do you make sure that the company is aligned to that, or make sure your organization is aligned? And by that I mean making sure that everybody at every level is aligned to the different strategy here, the different drivers, the different value measures that you want to measure here in terms of what this AI, what the personalization is going to do for AI, or what AI is going to do for personalization. Sorry, in that matter. So it's a matter of getting the alignment from the boots on the ground, the data engineers, the data scientists, all the way up to the leadership. Make sure everybody's aligned with the strategy and how to use it. Once you have that, it's a matter of then determine what are the capabilities you need. And I go back to things like skill sets. You need to have the right skill sets in order to be able to make sure you have the right people in place in order to be able to actualize your strategy, to actually implement it. You need to have the right infrastructure. You have the right game plan in order to actually be able to tackle your personalization journey.
Great. So I think you talked about some of the ingredients, but is there anything else that you want to cover from what's key to success in delivering personalization and value to your customers? Like you started with people and the tech, but is there anything else you'd like to add?
I would also add things like making sure that you have the need that you want to follow, right? Or the value you're trying to add there. So that's important. Again, is what's your goal? What's your goalpost? What are you trying to get towards? And that sort of feeds your strategy and feels sort of the integration or the implementation steps that you need to get to it.
Great. Thanks, Farhad. So thank you very much, team, for joining this panel and connecting the dots between the various capabilities and tools and thought leadership you provided on the previous presentations. Really appreciate everyone's time and hard work today, and I hope the audience has appreciated and found value in this as well. As we talk about personalization here in Canada, the team alluded to this in various phrases and lenses, but ultimately we see personalization journeys requiring aligning multidisciplinary teams across 3 swim lanes. The first is really that envisioning of what you want to do and how do you connect a positive customer experience or an improved customer experience or a better set of offers and product recommendations to a customer to actual economic benefit for your organization. At the end of the day, from a customer perspective, they're looking for one of 2 things. They're looking for value or convenience. And so how do you align an opportunity to use AI to create a more valuable or convenient experience to them to a real economic benefit to your business? And that's what that first swim lane is about, of understanding customer needs better and then diving into how large is your problem in servicing that need to then define that as a clear economic benefit that gives you your business case on how big or small or where on the spectrum is the way for you to right size your tooling here. The second layer, the execute layer, which is the highly technical one that I think we spent a lot of time talking about today and where most people focus their time, has 3 discrete pieces. It has the data, which Gurpreet touched on from an identity perspective, as well as Patrice and Farhad talked about from an augmentation perspective. There's the decisioning layer, which is actually the analytic itself. And I think the reason why you saw so much at the beginning of this presentation around sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's creepy, sometimes it makes me feel like a king, which is still the all-time best answer I've had to that particular question, is entirely dependent on whether your analytic tool fits in the right frame as the envision lens. Because at the end of the day, any data science process you build is going to spit out a product recommendation or a message or a price or whatever you're asking it to spit out. The difference between good and bad is whether the actual data science algorithms line up to the customer need you are trying to represent in that first envision swim lane. And ultimately, that's what Gurpreet is alluding to in terms of the data scientist is going to code what they think is right. And if you don't wrap them around in context and execution and data quality, they're probably going to miss more times than not. Finally, in the execution layer is the model itself is only going to spit out a set of recommendations. Acquisition AI in and of itself as a modeling tool only says these are the customers that are more likely to respond to your service. You then have to wrap that around a customer experience, whether that's with somebody directly working with a customer in a branch, whether it's reaching out to them via mobile or email channels, whether it's putting offers into a mobile experience or doing all of the above with the appropriate controls and real-time feedback loops to not bother them with different messages and different channels. That needs to be sorted out as well. And then the final swim lane, which is the enhanced swim lane, is really about recognizing where you are on this journey, which is really important. And it's something I think most people overlook, which is the first time you build a personalized experience, you're missing the most useful thing you can possibly have, which is how customers actually react to it. So as you go through the envision and execute swim lane for the first time in an experience, you've literally done that in rooms with whiteboards, you've done that with POCs, you've done that with small tests. Until you truly release this into the wild and see how customers react to it in the good, bad, and ugly fashion they will, it's very hard to know if you got it right or not. And so how do you build the right structures and processes around your end-to-end multidisciplinary team to react to feedback from customers, to react to whether you're hitting your mark on your expected benefits, to go back and adjust the data set or adjust the decision layer and do that in an agile and controlled fashion so that you can actually get your personalization experience fine-tuned to the point where all of them are making people feel like kings. So really, these are the 3 steps internally, and the team's happy to help and talk to anyone who would like. And I believe a recording of this will be made available on the global website. But getting all of these pieces right and recognizing that it's a continuous loop of understanding and learning and refinement, as Gurpreet and Anna and multiple other people referred to it as, is very important. And it's very hard to find a single person in an organization who's going to be a rock star in capability at all 9 of these steps. And so really it is a team sport.